Welcome to Vision Plus and welcome to this senior for mathematics on complex numbers. We are now on example 6 and that is under multiplication of complex numbers. Let's go in. It says simplify the following. Solution. For part A is telling us to simplify negative 4i but to power 3. Remember that inside here we have two terms. We have negative 4 and I, which are being multiplied, and both of them are raised to power 3. So by laws of indices, this power can be distributed. So this is the same as negative 4 power 3 times I power 3. The position of the negative is not necessarily 4, but you must put it either on 4 or on I. Putting it on 4 does not give a different answer when you put it on I. So I've chosen to put it on 4, and that will not change our answer. Now on going ahead, what is negative 4 power 3? Negative 4 power 3 means negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. So what is negative 4 times negative 4? That is positive 16. 16 times negative 4, that is negative 64. Now what about this part of I power 3? Remember that this power 3 we can open it, and by that I mean that is the same as I squared times I, because the law of indices will tell us that these are the same, because I squared times I is I power 3. Why are we doing that? We are trying to simplify so that we substitute, because we know that if there is I squared in that number, that means it is negative 1. So there is I squared here because it is power of 3. So now from here we can go on and say this is the same as negative 64. What is I squared? We have said that I squared is the same as negative 1. And then there is this I which is still there. This is simply I squared. So negative 64 times negative 1, that is positive 64. So here it gives us 64i. And this is the answer. Going to part B. Part B is I times 2i times negative 7i equals to, this is like, it is kind of direct. It just needs you to apply some concepts of indices and then apply the property of Euler, that is I squared is negative 1. So what is I times 2i? I times 2i is simply 2i squared, and we still have that negative 7i there. So now the next step is, what is 2i squared times negative 7i? 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. I squared times I, you simply add the powers. That becomes I power 3. If you are not okay with indices, make sure to watch the playlist that we have on this channel. This gives us negative 14 I cubed. That is true. Now from here, what can we do? We still know that, let me keep negative 14, there is an element of I squared in I power 3. So we are going to separate that I power 3 into two terms, that is I squared and I. Knowing that I squared times I takes us back to I cubed, so there is no change in the expression. But now what is I squared? I squared is negative 1 times I. So this gives us here 14i, and that is the answer. Going to part C. Part C is simply negative 2i power 4. We are going to apply the same concept as we did here. That means this power is being applied on each of the terms inside. And we only put the power on each of the terms on condition that the terms are being multiplied or they are a product. If inside here, if we had maybe a sum or difference of two or more terms, the property of using the power on each of the terms would not apply. Now, since it is a product here, we shall have here negative 2 power 4 and then I power 4. What is 2 to the power 4? That is 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times. Multiply negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 up to 4 times, and that will give us positive 16. What is I power 4? I power 4 is the same as I squared and again I squared, but we know that I squared equals to negative 1, so we substitute there 16 times negative 1 and again times negative 1 because there's negative 1 negative 1. 16 times negative 1 times negative 1 will still be positive 16. That is the solution. Now going to still your part D. So for part D here, just negative 8I squared. Remember inside there is a product, so this power can be put on each of the terms in the bracket. So here we shall have negative 8 squared, then we will have I squared. I have told you that the negative could be on I. You choose where to put the negative. So if you had put the negative on I, it would be better for you to put the square outside because that square will affect that sign. So this is also okay. What is negative 8 squared? That is negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. What is I squared? I squared is simply negative 1. 64 times negative 1 is negative 64. And that is the solution for example 1. Number 1 of example 6. Number 2 is just testing us a little bit. Let's see. It's telling us to show that or verify. We just need to verify that this left hand side equals to negative 2. In other words, this is the answer, but now the one has to arrive there. So simply we shall just say here we have root of 2 minus I into 1 minus root of 2. So if you look here, you have here negative I outside. So what you can do is first to open out this bracket, because if you are following BODMAS, you first operate the brackets. So this will give us, and when we keep this part the same, I will keep this part the same. So we'll have here root of 2 minus I. Now I'm going to open this bracket here by I. So here I can have here minus open bracket. What is I times 1? There is some I here. What is I times 1? Is I. What is I times negative root 2I? It will be negative root 2 I squared, because there is I here. I times I is I squared. Then when we proceed here, we shall have here root of 2 minus I minus, here we have I, but here we have minus, this I squared is going to be negative 1, so minus root of 2 by times negative 1. And when we proceed here, we shall have here root of 2 minus I minus open bracket I, negative 1 times negative root 2 to give us a positive root of 2. And then when we continue further, now we're just subtracting, so we're subtracting two complex numbers. So we can now get rid of the bracket. This is the same as root of 2 minus I minus I. Negative times positive is negative, so here it will give us a negative root of 2. When you collect the like terms, you see that root of 2 minus root of 2 minus I minus I. Root 2 minus root 2 is 0. Negative I minus I is negative 2I. I hope that is what we are looking for. It has given us negative 2I, and that is the answer that we have got. So this is the last example on multiplication of complex numbers. If you have questions, put them in the comment section and we shall work on them. Thank you.